small till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't, till it ain't. I'm building up a wall till it breaks. She hated when I call and it's late. I don't wanna keep you waiting. I hope I never keep you waiting. She think I know it all, but I don't. Good morning, Caitlin. How are you doing?
Morning, Scott. I'm doing great. How are you? How was Georgetown?
It was great. It was great. It was the Georgetown McCourt Policy School, and I talked about AI agents, Claude Code. I've actually been on a bit of a whirlwind. I was at the Harvard Medical School last week, presented it, a talk on AI agents. Then I went to Georgetown at their faculty retreat, and I was their keynote speaker, which that was neat.
Wow.
And then this week I went to Kennedy, and that was neat. And then I went to MIT 2 days ago to Alberto Abade's topics in econometrics, and there was all these famous people that I got to see the last 2 weeks, and it was really
Was it
neat.
intimidating?
Probably because I wasn't expecting them to be there. I didn't quite have the time to be intimidated, but I did meet people that I'm a big fan of.
That's cool.
So that was really cool. And yeah, like over the last 2 weeks, I think I've gotten an idea of a structure of a book. I think I'm starting to see like a table of contents emerging. For me, a book is can you envision 12 chapters arranged in three sections? That's how I think of a book with and then with an intro and a conclusion.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then it's not a book and you have to keep trying. So I think like the only way you can, and the other thing is too, I think books like this, they're born out of classes. Usually, that's how Mascalel, that's how they taught that class. They taught a three-part sequence at Harvard for like a long time, like over a
Hmm.
decade,
Yeah.
and and then the book just writes itself, and that's how
Yeah.
Dog did the mixtape. So, but there's no class on this, so I've got to like present it over and over and
I'm
kind of get a
using
feel
agentic AI to do research. It's
to do research.
really, I could see that book being very popular.
I know. I feel like there is a lot of demand for it, and so, but there's going to be 100 of these books, and then stuff's
Yeah.
going to change. So, you can either try to like race to the publisher, or you can just try to do the book that's inside you. And so, I'm more in that latter camp.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, yeah, it was great. What have you been doing for 2 weeks?
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Went to the MBR children's meetings in Chicago, and then, I feel like not to try to compete because I can't, but I also gave a keynote. I went to the Williams Peer Conference, which is an undergraduate research conference, and it was just so fantastic to see all of these undergraduate scholars from, it's not just Williams, like from a ton of institutions. They come to Williams and present their work, and their papers were great, and the feedback was so constructive and supportive.
Mm.
If you've heard those stereotypes of, kind of hostile econ seminars, you wouldn't see a bit of it there. So it was really fun.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Wait, so where were all these students from? All over?
Uh, like Lewis and Clark and Trinity in San Antonio
Oh,
and
wow.
Columbia and yeah, I mean, and Williams, of course, there were Williams students.
So it was pretty selective. They had to like
Yeah,
apply
you
and they
apply,
got
the
it.
students apply, but I'm just going to encourage for
Oh,
any undergrads out there, next year when peer rolls around, it is a great opportunity.
wow. Wow. Um, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we need to remember that. That's something to broadcast to
Yeah.
everybody. Well, good. So what's it called so that everybody knows?
Peer promoting, oh gosh, when you're the keynote, you should know what the acronym stands for. Promoting inclusivity in economics research, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Open to
Okay.
all, open to all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you by chance see on LinkedIn this comment by Jessica? I think it's Light, or it might be
Mhm.
Leet. She's at IFPRI. Did you
If
happen to
she's
see?
listening, she should let us know. I did see the comment. Yeah.
I was wanting to kind of not probably not people listening saw it, so I'm just going to kind of summarize a couple of points, and I was wanting to see what you thought. Um, there was this. It was sort of a longer post, and Jessica seems to be one of our long time listeners. First time. This will be long time listener, first time caller, but she's not calling. So she tagged us, and it said, in a large number of. She was talking about the episode with Hannah
Our
Sayre.
last episode, yeah.
Yeah, and Hannah had said that she had worked 80 hours on our on her like task that you gave her. First of all, what was your response when you heard that?
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Were you still in,
I mean, we
were
know
you
how long this
impressed?
takes, Scott, right? Yeah, no, I know Hannah well, having supervised her when she was an undergrad at Middlebury, and she is absolutely meticulous. And being a meticulous researcher takes time, and the data quests we were giving her were complex, and we didn't know the answer. And so
Yeah.
my response was gratitude that Hannah is doing this for free, fear that we're exploiting her, no
Yeah.
matter how much she protests
Yeah,
that
yeah,
she's
yeah.
and also I was just like, yeah, that's how long it takes to figure these things out.
It's kind of a little bit of some old school Jon Snow energy, a little bit, because in that famous Diff and Diff by Jon Snow, he
Water source maps in London
yeah,
in the 19th
yeah, he
century looking for a source of cholera.
yeah, and you know what he did? He went door to door for those neighborhoods, of which there was like 1,000 households. And
Yeah.
he asks them which water utility company they're using. And a lot of the time they don't know because the landlord would pay for their water utility and they'd never even met their landlord. And so he knew that the water was more salty at the one that was up river than the one downriver. And so he took beakers to the faucet and he would take samples of water, go back to his house and do a salt test and do an assignment. And I just was like thinking, that's some Hannah energy too. Like she is like, I'm gonna get this answer right.
Yeah.
And that's how
I'm
she
gonna
was a
email
college
the
student.
Texas DHS
Yeah. I'm gonna look at the history of the
over and
laws.
over, no matter how many times they ignore me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how
Yeah.
she was as an undergrad.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like
Which is
teacher,
one of the
like
reasons I was happy to bring her onto this project.
yeah, like teacher, like student. That's what I said. That's like some Caitlin Jon Snow stuff too. That's
I
how I
take it
said
as a
it.
compliment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so here's what Jessica said. In a large number of academic and research positions, 80 hours of RA time, undergrad or grad, is a very scarce commodity. Many don't have access to it at all. Many would have to devote more time to fundraising for or organizing it. And if you did access RA time from a current student, it would normally be not more than 10 to 15 hours a week, meaning total elapsed time of some weeks before a task of this magnitude would be accomplished. To have an RA devote that magnitude of time to a project that ultimately can't move forward is, again, for the typical researcher, a huge cost. What do you think when she said that?
I think that's exactly right. I think that this is one of the primary barriers to research, and it's also, um, let's say, it's an inequality
Yeah.
between people at, better, more and less resource institutions that have more and
Totally.
less access to RA time for this sort of exploratory analysis. I think
I
she's
also
spot on.
I also kind of think about the quote leaky pipeline, the
Yeah,
gender and underrepresented minority leaky pipeline. And it's like I like that metaphor because it's very non-specific. It's like, it's like the pipeline is leaky. And as opposed to highlighting one particular behavioral deal or whatever. And it's funny how you could just think, well, if the it's kind of the invisible hand, but it's a little bit of the visible hand is allocating people to positions, and it's taking some people and it's allocating them to under-resourced positions. These seemingly like little things like labor inputs that you're given as a professor, access to RA time,
yeah,
um, can have profound, they can like really add up, right?
right. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you should go on because I think I like Jessica
Yeah,
continues to a conclusion that I think is quite
so she
apt.
says, my overall assessment is that Claude was, in this case, mostly right in that it identified most of the challenges with the data. maybe not always fully accurately or as much detail as Hannah did, but for ruling a project out, for identifying that a hypothetical data set is mostly not very high quality or can't be used, 75% accuracy in quote, this isn't very promising is probably very similar to 90% accuracy in quote, this isn't very promising. And if it's not promising, it's wise to move on. And the much, much shorter and cheaper runway to identifying projects that may not be very feasible seems like a huge boon, particularly for researchers with more limited research support and or early career researchers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's one of the things I keep mulling over and that Hannah and I were kind of wrestling with a little bit in the last episode, which is that Claude did basically figure all of this out, and the pieces that it didn't figure it out were fairly inconsequential, right? And so Hannah largely verified and explained Claude's work. And, put a different way, somebody without 80 hours of RA time could have pretty much gotten to where we were. They might have just been a little bit less sure
Yeah,
about what they were looking at.
right.
Um, I think that's a valid point. And one of the reasons that we're kind of wrestling with this question of, on the one hand, this is a boon for researchers at less resource institutions and at earlier career scholars who have less resources. And on the other hand, I worry about the effects on training the next generation because our system now largely trains them through this type of RA work.
Yeah.
But I do want to add one kind of additional thought, which is kind of expanding on what Jessica said. I don't want to misrepresent it, but when talking about identifying kind of promising projects, the question of feasibility, which is the word that she uses, is obviously essential. Like if we concluded that the data just weren't any good, the project would not be feasible, and it would be better to know that sooner without 80 hours of RA time. But on the other hand, what I worry about is that people will quickly conclude it's probably a null result and move on. And null results are important to science,
Yeah.
right? No, particularly when what you have is a null result that's a pretty precise zero. Like
Yeah.
learning that there's no effect is important to science. And I worry a little bit that access to Claude Code will mean that people quickly realize there's no effect and don't invest in the project. And then we don't know about all of the places where there's no effect.
Can I ask a question on behalf of a listener? When you say a null result, a person might think that a statistically insignificant result with like a really big confidence interval is a null result. What are you? Then you said this word precise. So I was curious,
Yeah, let's talk.
what's
Yeah.
the difference to you of those two things?
Yeah, so I think of like when I see an initial result of an analysis that's giving me some insight into, typically it's a treatment effect. The first thing you look at is the point estimate, right? And
Yeah.
you ask the question just like, is this big, right? Is it economically significant? And then the second thing you look at is the standard error, the confidence interval, and you ask yourself the question, how sure am I about that? And so
Mhm.
obviously like the ideal situation to be in terms of concluding that there is an effect is you've got some sort of like, let's say big or meaningful coefficient that's precisely estimated and you're like, yeah, it's there, like this is a super hot sexy result, everybody's gonna jump all over this, right?
Mhm.
It's less satisfying when it's really imprecise. It might be statistically significant, but you're kind of like, I don't know, it could be small, it could be big, it's like the confidence interval's a mile wide. That's not so satisfying, and I think we don't tend to talk about that enough. We overemphasize and maybe fetishize p-values and don't talk about precision enough.
Yeah.
But then to answer your question about a null result, so you tell me if you would agree with this, but I guess I would kind of characterize there being two types of null results. One is a situation where you don't have a statistically significant estimate, but it's also so imprecise that you're just kind of like, I don't know. I
Mhm.
just don't know, right? Like it's not statistically significant, but I can't rule out the possibility there's something meaningful there. That is
Yeah.
the least satisfying place to be, just like not knowing.
Yeah.
But then there's another one where you actually have a confidence interval that's like pretty tightly centered on zero effect,
Mhm.
right? It's not
Mhm.
statistically significant. There's no sexy stars, but like that actually is knowledge. Like
Mhm.
you're pretty sure there's just nothing going on here or nothing big. And I would say that's the type of null result that we particularly need to see
Yeah.
and that I worry is we talk about this a lot in the field and try to change it, but I do worry that basically there's bias against publishing that type of null result, which is I'll call it a precise zero.
I completely agree. Uh, I completely agree. I don't know if I have as, just being candid, I don't know if I have as clear normative guidance over what to do with those big confidence intervals, because
Yeah,
like I don't know if that justifies, a space in a journal. It could be educational because it kind of says this study might be underpowered. And hey, researcher, you should know going into this that you probably need a bigger data set
yep,
because that you don't
right.
this, and so there is value.
There is.
It may not be that you learned about the result, but it could be like, telling researchers be on the lookout. There's something that you might want to know. And I think about that, but it's like I completely agree that learning, a zero is very important. It's a
Yeah,
result. Like um, in an experiment, it would be a very valuable. If Moderna had done when Moderna does an RCT on an RMNA, whatever the vaccine, and they find a zero,
right.
that
We want to
has
know it
huge
doesn't work.
social. Yeah, you want to know it doesn't work. You don't want to
Yeah,
like people. You don't want people doing it. It's a huge waste of so scarce resources.
yeah.
So I totally agree. I totally agree. Um, yeah.
So
You know
if
what?
Claude Code makes it cheaper to find both varieties of null results, which both have value, I'm worried we just never see them. There's a whole bunch of people, I mean, cheaply reinventing the wheel behind the scenes, but like I
Yeah.
kind of worry that it actually, this is a story where it doesn't help with the kind of march forward of, the progress of science.
So long as I think Claude's not doing some sneaky stuff behind the veil of his analysis,
Yeah.
I think we still have to be on top of everything he's doing, which I say that because I learned something this week. I learned that Claude is actually keeping a complete record of everything he did, um, and it is in our directories.
Hmm.
What I mean is, he is talking out loud. He's reasoning through every choice, and then what that is getting stored in a JSON. And so if he's p hacking or
Yeah.
specification searching,
We'll
we'll
find it.
know. We'll find it. So we
Ooh.
could go back and ask him, we could say to him, or we could say to him, look at this, look at what Hannah said. Why did you not bring that up? And he might say it was inconsequential or have a different opinion, even though he did not give us that at the end.
Yeah.
He's
We should
keeping a
we should
diary.
go back and
He's
ask him
keeping a
this stuff.
diary. He's keeping a
Yeah.
diary. He's just not sharing it with us. You have to,
Hmm.
because somebody at MIT told me that. So I've found on this experiment I've been running, he'll run Callaway and Santana, see the results, and then switch to a different estimator, and then only give me that estimator.
Oh dear.
Mhm.
Oh no, it's part of him wanting to please us. He wants to find stars. Scott, you're
It's not stars, but it is something. The result isn't what I was expecting. And then he looks. So it's not actually, it doesn't appear to be p hacking, but it is specification searching. Yeah. So, but here's the deal. He's doing it. And so there's a bunch of stuff under the hood, but the thing is, it's detectable. That's my point.
mhm,
Is it
that's
is
good.
detectable,
Yeah.
and journals could request it. They could
Yep.
request it as part of a submission, or that I don't know. So anyway, all that to say, what are we doing today? What do you want to do today?
I want to pick back up where we left off because we left off the last time we ran a regression,
Yep.
which I now know I can call a Poisson regression. So thank you for that, learning in public. The last time we ran a regression, we got a pretty surprising result. So in our naive regression, we were finding that decreased access to abortion decreased marriages. And while we had mentioned that that was theoretically possible, like maybe knowing there's not abortion around, women get choosier or something like that, right? I'm gonna
Hmm.
be honest, it wasn't what I expected.
Yeah.
We also found that that result was sensitive to controls. And we also know from the new diff and diff literature that this two-way fixed effects approach could have some really significant problems. And so I'm
Right.
hoping we can just pick back up and keep working on it to try to figure out what the answer is here.
Great.
That sound
Okay.
right?
That sounds right. So I had
Okay.
this, so we offline had I'd asked if I could do like a an explanation of this two-way fixed effects thing. So
Yeah.
I wanted to say my conjecture real quick. So
Okay.
my conjecture, all right, so this is a conjecture and it doesn't apply to you and me, but I'm going to say that uh a lot of applied people are not just dying to learn a bunch of econometric estimators. They have day jobs, they have to write papers, and they care about their projects. So, if that's true, this is my theory, why did this diff and diff literature explode like it did? Why is everybody reading all these new diff and diff papers if they don't want to just sit down at the margin and read all of these? And I have this theory. The theory is they learned first that two-way fixed effects was biased with the staggered rollout situation.
Yep.
And therefore, they had doubts about their day job. And therefore
Hmm.
they went to the doctor. They're going to the doctor because they learned that they have symptoms. So today is not going to be about the these new continuous estimators. Today is going to be just about what are the symptoms or what is the bias of two-way fixed effects in this
Yep.
continuous situation? And it has nothing to do with staggering. You ready? I had Claude try
I
to
am
make some stuff.
so ready. And Scott, I'm going to give you permission. I'm going to serve in the role of a curious audience member who
Perfect.
maybe doesn't 100% totally get it all
Okay.
and give you permission. Like, please go. You are an expert at going through this, and I'm like kind of excited for you to walk me through this and help
Okay.
me. I'll ask questions as we go along, and if they're dumb questions, I'll just pretend like they're for the sake of an audience member, but maybe they're for me too.
Well, the thing is, I don't feel like I'm particularly an expert, but we do have someone that has read the paper also pretty closely, Mr. Claude. So we're going to ask him anytime we
Good.
can't figure it out, we're just going to ask him. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's do it. So we have a beautiful deck. What's your opinion about, real quick before we get started, what's your opinion about this background color?
Yeah, I'm very happy you've taken away the navy blue and orange color scheme. Scott, that was not doing it
Please.
for me at
I've
all.
kind
So
of
now we
noticed he
have,
does that a lot.
what's that?
I've kind of noticed that. I've noticed online a lot. You can start to see the Claude signatures because he has a particular font that he likes, and he does like that blue background.
I don't object to his font, but I do object to his like overly Brooks Brothers circa 1994 preppy male economist aesthetic. And I've been trying to move him away from it. My style guide says more pink. So,
Brooks Brothers. That's perfect.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one, for folks who can't see it, is navy with a nice little, is that teal and gray, and like it looks better.
Well,
Yeah,
what about this background? Is that am I wrong? That's a little like
little gray.
so well this like is that's not really white, is it? It's kind of a little bit tannish, or am I wrong?
It might depend on the monitor we're looking at. On
Oh,
my end,
you're
yeah, it is. I think you're right that it's not strictly white,
okay. Maybe
but
it's one of those whites when you go to the paint store
maybe
and
it's very light taupe. I go for
yeah.
taupe anytime I can't decide. Grayish.
I know my ex-wife, we would go to the paint store and she'd be looking
Yeah,
for the white and there'd be like 50 different white paints.
right.
We would sit there for like an hour and I was like,
Yeah,
I can't tell the difference in any of these. And she was like, they're very different. You need to
yeah,
get back in the car. So,
yeah.
what is two-way fixed effects averaging over? CBS, I have asked Claude to call the Callaway Goodman Bacon Santana CBS and not CGBS because I can't, it doesn't roll off the tongue as much. So I'm calling
Okay.
it
So you
Callaway
have
Bacon.
taken a name away from Andrew Goodman Bacon. You just
I
took,
asked him, I said, is that cool? Because I just can't do it. And he said, well,
and he
everybody
said,
calls him.
okay.
Yeah, he said it's okay because we all call him Bacon anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right.
As long as he
Okay.
agreed.
All right, here we go. Single number. We had this here, beta hat, negative 0.03. But that negative 0.03 that we got was from a regression of marriage rates onto Two-way fixed effects with a Poisson. It was year counting fixed effects and a single covariate, which was the distance measure.
In hundreds of miles. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this
100 miles.
coefficient, just linear approximation, would suggest that a 100-mile increase in distance to the nearest abortion facility decreases marriages by about 3%.
3%.
And this is the no controls. This does change with controls, but this is our naive regression starting point.
And we're gonna do it this way because the Frischwald level thing, we can do it. We can do it with covariates, but we could have done it with covariates, but we're not going to. We're just gonna do it like this. And
Yeah.
what would be the behavioral story? Let's say that we did believe this was right. What is the behavioral story that you have in mind where it's very hard to get an abortion, and so abortions fall. But we had originally found really like we were pretty skeptical about the birth result in our JHR, right? Didn't you
We
think?
were skeptical. We thought we were underpowered.
Yeah.
And right, so our concern with JHR was that we were powered to detect effects on abortions, but that we were underpowered to detect effects on births,
Hmm.
which is actually why I went ahead and wrote a subsequent paper to JHR because I get very obsessed with things like that, where I expanded the analysis to the entire country to pick up better power. And then you can see that the decreases in abortions do translate to a corresponding decrease in births. So I do think we know that increased distance reduces, or sorry, increased distance increases births, reduces abortions and
Ah.
increases births.
Okay, so is that consistent with a reducing marriage?
I mean,
Reducing marriage? What would it even be
I
then?
can tell you a story, but I don't feel like I really believe it. But I guess the only story I've come up with, which I mentioned a sec ago, but is just that knowing that abortion has become less available, people change their kind of, I would say mating behavior. That
Hmm.
sounds like such an academic thing, but they become more risk averse, maybe date less, have sex less, whatever it is, and that actually is reducing the matches. I just want to be very clear. I have a hard time believing this,
I don't know if I
but that's a
I don't
story I
know if
could
I agree with you that it is an unlikely thing in the dating market. Dating
really.
market, well, I mean, the thing is in the dating market, the online dating market, which is what the dating market is the online dating market. The online dating market, there is essentially three risks. Actually, here, this is the thing. Online dating is blind date dating. That's what
Yeah,
it is. Every time
right,
you online date, it is blind date about which you know nothing of the person. So it's very, very different from historic dating patterns where you might have met somebody at work or met somebody through a friend. There's like no background that you know. So there's only like three risks that you have in online dating. Pregnancy risk, which can be reduced to zero through contraception and abortion technology. So like that is like a zero risk. Okay. And effectively, and then STD risk. Those are two biological risks that have been fallen a lot because of, you know, PrEP, antiretroviral treatments have basically made STD risk a very low thing in general. And getting pregnant is very, very manageable. So what's remaining is the uncertainty about the other person. If they're violent, if they have a secret
right.
marriage, if they're
I was
gonna
waiting for you to
harass.
say the axe murderer risk. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's like it doesn't even have to be the axe murder. It's just
yeah,
like,
no, I know.
is this person who they say they are?
Right.
So if I don't know what to think about one of those risks going back up, how it disrupts that whole encounter.
Yeah,
Because you could just suddenly go, I'm not gonna, well, now I have to deal with two risks, only one of which, um, I mean, they do have some control over, you do have control a little bit over learning about a potential date because they do tons and tons of screening online. There's all these like crowdsourced things. 2014, there wasn't as much. But anyway, my point is that I think you could screw with those probabilities and have disruptive effects. I'm not saying I agree with this result though.
yeah. I agree with you in theory, but I'll point out that the pre-Dobbs literature suggests that very few people were aware of abortion access prior to realizing pregnancy, which is why we didn't see like big changes in sexual behavior, like increases in contraceptive use. So for me, like this
Mm,
whole theory that I'm presenting would hinge on people knowing abortion has become less accessible, like that their nearest abortion clinic is closed. And I am
I see.
skeptical of that. But
Oh, that's a good point.
I do agree with you. I mean, in any event, we're staring at a negative coefficient, and I
Yeah.
think that, either we we might rationalize it or we
Yeah.
might decide it's wrong. And
Exactly.
I want to figure out
Exactly.
if it's wrong.
All right, here we go. We're going to pull this regression apart. What we're going to do is we're going to use the famous Frischwald-Level theorem to pull it apart. And I wanted to turn it over to you real quick and let you kind of tell us about Frischwald-Level because you've got a pretty picture.
I do have a pretty picture, and you can see what Claude thinks I'm gonna like in terms of slide design. So this is going to be real quick. I teach regression analysis at Middlebury to undergrads, and I do not have a linear algebra prereq. So they only have a Calc 1 prereq. So I almost want to call it like mostly intuitive multiple regression intuition. There's no linear algebra involved. And even though I do derive like an OLS estimator with summation notation, I used method of moments, but some of the students, this is pretty intimidating. So I also have my intuitive version that builds on Peter Kennedy. Are you familiar with Peter Kennedy's like work
Yeah.
on like econometrics education? So
The
I
guys
love,
with econometrics. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like I love Kennedy so much. And he introduced like in the early 80s this Ballantine diagram notion, which he sometimes also calls a Venn diagram in later works, which I
Mm,
think is technically incorrect, but I don't really care personally. So here is my very intuitive version of Frischwald level.
okay.
So let's start with a simple regression model where we're just regressing y on x. I have a slide up for folks who aren't looking that shows two overlapping circles. There's a purple circle labeled Y, and that represents total variation in the outcome. And there's a mauve circle. By the way, note Claude knows correctly from looking at my style guide that I want pink and purple.
Mm,
But so there's a mauve circle that is labeled X, that's total variation in X. And what I teach my students after we derive the OLS estimator is that in a simple regression, the slope coefficient is the ratio of the correlation, the covariance of X and Y to the total variation in X. And intuitively, it's just like when X wiggles, how much does Y wiggle with it relative to how much X is wiggling? And Scott, you have raised your hand.
Um, some of us on the call thought it was called mauve.
Yeah, I wonder.
Is it not? It's called mauve. M-A-U. That's a color.
Well, Scott, now I don't know. Ask Claude how to pronounce it. What if I'm pronouncing it wrong?
I have 100% positive confidence that you're pronouncing it right.
Oh, no, I don't at
I've
all.
never said it out loud, so in my head I've always said mauve,
Okay,
but now
well,
that I
please
say
add
that,
this to the list of questions we're going to
yeah.
ask Claude. Find out real quick. And then we'll
Uh,
cut this part. Anytime Caitlin's like, doesn't know something, I just plan to cut it. Not really. We've kept them all in.
all right, keep going. Sorry. I was gonna.
Okay. So, um, the way you can think about this in this Ballantine diagram approach that Kennedy introduced is that this is the ratio of this area labeled A, which is the
Mm,
overlap of Y and X, the covariation, to this area A plus B, which is the total variation in X. So
mm,
that's just kind of a simple starting point. What you
mm,
want to think of is what happens when you have two explanatory variables, right? And the intuition that we give students here when we're just waving our hands in a class without linear algebra is we say, well, when you have two explanatory variables, the coefficient on each is a partial correlation coefficient, meaning beta 1, the coefficient on x1, is going to be the relationship between x and y after you hold x2, the other explanatory variable, constant.
mhm.
And for a lot of students who aren't familiar with linear algebra, like the derivation of that is a little inaccessible. And it just sounds like magic. It just sounds like we're saying, like, trust me, this is true. We've held x2 constant. It's magic. But I think that Frischwald level gives us a way for them to verify it without a lot of kind of mathematical pyrotechnics in the background. And so what I have here on this slide is this Venn diagram where I've added two explanatory variables. So we have y, variation in y, and it's overlapped by variation in both explanatory variables. And what's crucial is that the two explanatory variables covary with each other, right? So what multiple regression does is essentially toss out all the information from what's labeled here D plus E, the
Mm.
covariation of the two explanatory variables.
And
Multiple
what
regression,
is
yep,
the D plus E the correlation? The where they because is it D plus
it's
E?
total covariation between X1 and X2. It
Oh, I see.
represents the covariation
Okay, got
between
it.
X1 and X2.
Can
And
you
so
just tell
it's
me where
yeah.
the residual is in this diagram?
So the residual UI in the main model would be the
No, no,
label.
from the FW because you've got X1 squiggle.
Well, that's what I'm about to walk through.
Okay, my bad.
Let me
Sorry.
do it. Let me do it.
All right.
So, okay. So the general idea, the hand waving idea is like, look, we're going to just
Mm.
toss D and E. And students are like, really? How does that happen?
Oh, I see it. Okay, got it.
So what Frischwald level says, and I actually don't tell them it's Frischwald level, and I should, but what it says is that, look, you could get beta one hat a different way. So to show students that we are going to toss D and E, what you can do is you can start by regressing X1 on X2, and then take the residual from that regression. The residual from that regression is A plus B. It's the variation in X1 that is not explained by X2, right? That's like this. I always feel like I'm some sort of weird eugenicist when I use this non-technical term, but I often will refer to it to students as I'm like, this is the pure variation in X1. This is the variation in X1, A plus B, that is not contaminated by X2, which is not technical at all. But this residual A plus B, this is what we really want to work with. And then if you go and regress G, or sorry, you regress Y, regress the outcome on that residual
Hmm.
from that regression, A plus B, you will get the same coefficient as if you had run the multiple regression in the first place. You will get beta 1 by doing this, right? And so that's Frischwald level. It basically says, look, you can, in my version of Frischwald level, it says you can partial out the covariation between X1 and X2 by regressing X1 on X2 and then just taking the residual. You can toss that D plus E, and then you can use that. You can regress Y on that residual and get your multiple regression coefficient.
That is brilliant. They must have their mind blown when you do this.
Well, not only that, but then we do it, right? Like, and I don't know if you do this when you teach
Hmm.
econometrics, but then we actually go and take a regression and do it. And
Oh,
I
but
think
this
for,
graphic is incredible. This is amazing.
well, thank you to Peter Kennedy. I, don't-
Yeah.
and I'll tell you just as an aside, I won't go all into it, but this Ballantine approach is also really, really good for thinking through perfect collinearity. It's really good for thinking through precision and what happens when X1 and X2 are strongly correlated, and you end up with like a very little sliver of pure variation in either to use, and why that blows up your standard errors. And it's great for IV. So just
Venn
kind of shout
diagram.
out to Kennedy because I think it's a good teaching device.
These Venn diagrams and are just so valuable and working within that and being and realizing how it maps directly back onto something like regression is just so I guess D plus E is just getting thrown out. I actually hadn't really thought about it.
Basically,
Yeah, it's just
right?
it's A over A plus B and it's C over C plus F.
Right. And we're always we're sad to lose D&E, right? Because this can reduce our precision because we're tossing out information, but it's like
Oh my
unusable information. We can't disentangle the independent effects of X1 and X2. So we're like, we're going to toss it. And then we're going to say, what's the effect of X1 holding X2 constant and vice
I bet your
versa. And I
kids,
think,
you're sorry.
yeah, I think it helps students get it.
I bet it does. I mean, I bet it is just so. I had not done it like this. I have Venn diagrams and stuff in the original mixtape, but I did not know Dr. Kennedy did that. That's incredible.
I also recommend, yeah, there's a great paper on the Journal of Economics Education that talks about doing this for IV. That's the basis of my teaching. So if I can just proselytize for the Ballantine approach to teaching students without a ton of math prep, it's great.
Well, that's incredible. Okay, well, this one doesn't seem as exciting the way I was going to do it, but this
No,
is
give
the
us
way.
the real version. Give
This
us
is
the
the
give
way.
us.
this is the way that I teach it in the probability stats class at Harvard. Um, so this all goes back. What you just went through isn't just Dr. Kennedy, it's Frisch-Wahl level. Frisch and Waugh are early 20th century statisticians. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the proofs of the Frisch-Wahl theorem were hard. Lovell, I think, is an economist. I think it's the 50s, and I believe it was an easier proof, or a lot of these things start getting generalized. I can't quite remember. But anyway, so Frisch-Wahl Lovell, FWL theorem, and in the graphics of it, you have this like multivariate regression, and I just am going to put here, I'm just going to say, y is the outcome, although it's diff and diff, so it's like change in y. And then we've got this like treatment variable, and then we've got these like other regressors, which are like the county and your
Right.
fixed effects. And
Right.
so the county and your fixed effects are like that stuff that was on your Venn diagram to the right,
Exactly.
so those get partialed out. But see, in the original multivariate regression, if you didn't do this all in set notation and you just did it you did it algebraically, whatever, you don't have a single coefficient, you have a plane, and if you've got like more than three covariate, if you've got more than three variables, you have four variables,
Yep.
you can't visualize it.
Right.
So, because it becomes what's called a hyperplane. So
Yeah.
here it's like visualized. We're just kind of lumping everything here as like other regressors. And so we've got this like, for those that are listening, we have this like three-dimensional little like tripod looking thing. And so you've got this plane, and here's the dots. And what these dots are like, they're supposed to be like measuring the covariate, like they're like in triplets of like the dimensional space of all of these as like triplets. And you can see here, like they're doing this movement. And so that equivalent, there's like a regression coefficient in here, and that it's that one.
Hmm.
It's the identical slope over here, having partialed it out. And so, there's I guess many different ways pedagogically to present the Frisch-Wahl level result, which is that multivariate regression coefficient is a partialing out, is that language. It's a partialing out of those other covariates such that you could represent it as just one regression, like, or rather, outcome onto a residualized treatment variable with all that stuff pulled out.
Yep. And I
Well,
think that's helpful too, Scott, for thinking about identifying variation in a diff and diff model. Because if you think about that first stage, if you have, in, I'm just going to use our situation. If you have a county where distance doesn't vary at all,
yeah,
right? That is going to be kind of predicted by
yes,
these county fixed effects, right? So the
yeah,
only identifying information, variation in distance that we have left after the first stage is in the counties where distance changes, right? So
yeah.
that's what's going to identify the distance coefficient.
Yeah, and you know what? We had a conversation offline about this like zero change, and now I believe that I was wrong what I said. So because now I'm remembering that the generalized formula for this two-way fixed effects decomposition does have this county that has a zero change, and it was
Yeah.
not in that. Yes,
Okay. That's
exactly.
why good. Well,
Because
let's walk through it because I was
let's walk
confused
through it.
by that. Yeah, let's walk through it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna use this word dose,
Okay.
and
And dose D is not a dummy. Here
correct.
Okay, here D is the dose. So it's continuous, like the increase in distance or the
I'm not
change in
crazy
distance.
about this because this is what Claude did. I would prefer and actually I think he's gonna like change it a little bit because he is going to switch to, and I've talked to him about this, and I believe it's in the original regression, but like I actually have for my own stuff asked him to just stick with uh either stick with D or L, but he's gonna you're gonna yeah
He's going to switch notation on
he's gonna
me.
switch notation on us, and I don't really know
Oh,
why, but
bless his heart.
I know
All
he
right.
does it, and he keeps doing it.
All
So
right.
anyway,
So I'll try to keep up. So D is
dose
dose, it's
is
continuous,
yeah,
not a
dose.
dummy.
It's not a dummy. So in our
Okay.
case, dose is how big of a change in distance to the nearest abortion clinic happened at in the county level measurements.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. Then there's this word atom.
Hmm.
And this is this thing that I should have had in my mind, which is that there are 56 Texas counties where the dose is exactly zero. And the clinic they used in 2012 was the clinic they used in 2014. They get
Yep.
no House Bill 2 treatment by design. What are these counties? Tell me a little bit about what you know about these 56 counties, Caitlin.
Yeah, so it's interesting that there's not more in a sense. So these are places where they have to be places where the closest clinic to the county did not close.
Yeah.
Therefore, the distance remained the same. And what's interesting is that you could have a city like Houston that has quite a few clinics in its, and I'm going to use facilities actually, facilities in its metropolitan area. And some of them closed and some of them didn't. And so if you're in Harris County, Texas, which is Houston, and there are 10 clinics in Harris County, if your closest clinic is one that closed, your distance will have actually changed a little bit, but barely because there's another one there, right? But they'll actually end up, I guess, in our treated group, even if the change in distance is like half a mile. So the 56 counties are ones where the nearest clinic did not close.
Is it going to be predominantly, are the
I
atoms
don't
going to be
know
predominantly
which
large
one that
cities?
I don't know which ones they'll be because I don't know off the top of my head, for instance, if a clinic that closed in Houston was being used as the nearest one to Harris County and that was generating like a very small change in distance. So we would have to map this for me to
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
is your priors though that it's like probably going to be more urban?
Yes, my prior is it's probably going to be more urban because they had clinics that remained open. But like I said, if one of the clinics there that closed was the closest one, it could shock distance a tiny little bit.
Urban, regional? Texas is
Um,
gigantic, so like is it urban
yeah, I mean,
and
it's
it's like
probably the
latitude,
place.
longitude's going to be a certain kind of place?
Yeah, the places that are, I'll do the inverse of this. The places that are kind of heavily treated by distance changes are like West Texas, Panhandle, Rio Grande Valley, um, Waco gets treated. So, those are the places that definitely get treated, but lots of other places have like little distance changes.
It's
So
not
put
random though.
differently, if we just instead counted the number of counties where the distance change was less than 5 miles,
Mhm.
I think it could easily be more than 100,
But
right?
it's
I
not
think this is
random.
a very strict threshold.
But it's
So,
not random, right? That's the thing. It's not
correct.
it's not like it's a, 254 sided die and it's like they're
Right,
just
of course.
yeah.
Correct. I don't think
Right.
it's random. No,
Right.
agree with you.
Because
Yeah.
it can't be, right? Because like you just said, if you know the economic theory about why you have to have admitting privileges within a certain number of miles, then uh well, yeah, like would you think urban counties would be more because see, like Waco's two hospitals, one's Baptist and one's Catholic.
Yeah.
And so I think
Um,
that it was like there were like religious things that were keeping admitting privileges. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true though.
I
Are
I'm
you
thinking
skeptical of
about that
that?
hospital in Dallas that briefly gave admitting privileges to providers and then revoked it. And I don't think it had a religious affiliation. I think it just didn't want protesters blocking the entrance to its emergency department, which is what happened. I
Yeah.
think it might be a little more. Here's my thinking on what happened. Some abortion providers had admitting privileges because they were OBGYNs and they had admitting privileges at hospitals they were delivering babies to. Others didn't because they weren't delivering babies, right? They were mostly providing abortions.
Mhm.
So there is a certain amount, like in a city, let's say let's say half of the providers had admitting privileges already and half didn't, and then all of a sudden there's this shock. In a city, you're just more likely to have some clinics that stay open, right? Even if half of them close, you're more likely to have clinics that stay open, but also their clinics have more providers, so they're more likely to be able to stay open because they have at least one physician who can continue to provide. And
Right.
in rural areas with just one clinic, right, the chance that there's a big shock to distance is greater.
Right. Because they just have to, yeah, if there's one in a county,
Yeah,
they have to win that one coin flip. If
right,
there's
exactly.
five, they only have to win one of them, right? They
Right,
have five
exactly.
chances. And
Exactly.
so in a large city, there's going to be more likely to be five. There's not going to be, there
Yes.
wasn't five. Yeah. So that's why I was thinking these zeros are probably more likely to be where there was large demand.
Yep.
But although, it's kind of interesting though, Kaylin, like Harris County, Houston is gigantic.
Yes.
You could easily end up having to drive an hour and a half.
It's totally true. Yeah, absolutely. And our distances are under what's called typical driving conditions, according to
Mhm.
the it's Nokia that produces the API that we're using. And for typical driving conditions in Harris County, what are they choosing? I don't know.
Yeah, but aren't we doing the centroid? I kind of thought always, and I'm just having, I can't
Well,
remember.
we're calculating the distance from the population centroid of the county to the nearest facility. And so like the distance, they choose the
Oh,
shortest route. So we are doing
yes.
just distance, but there's also drive times.
So it
And
can be within county. Right.
oh yeah.
Got
Oh
it.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, 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 right,
But
right,
keep
right.
in mind that even within county, like if you have
But
the
yeah.
centroid of Harris County and there's 10 little facilities in there, if it happens to be the case that the nearest facility closed, it'll still redirect you to another facility and your distance will change a little bit, right? So
Mhm.
that's why I'm saying we can have very small distance changes in urban counties. Depends
Yeah,
on
but it's
where
like it's
they were
smoothing
directed.
out. It's like smoothing it out a little bit because you could spend an hour in the car going on
Yeah,
whereas, and that would be like, the equivalent of like 50 miles or whatever, and it's getting a zero. The extremes, like it's getting a
yeah.
zero.
Yeah, I mean,
And
back in the day,
like,
I used drive times as a
yeah,
robustness check, and we got really the same result. But I again am not sure
yeah.
how they're calculating drive time and what is typical.
It's hard to do research.
Yeah.
You have to make unsatisfying decisions and then move on. So, okay,
Yep.
so we've got delta Y, log change in the marriage rate for 2 years. And because I asked him, by the way, I asked him to do a decomposition based on, year before and year after, just so that
Yep.
we made it clean because today's pedagogical. And then we have a weight. And the weight is going to be one number per county, determines how much that county influences it, because we're going to do weighted least squares.
Yeah.
All right. Poisson. Poisson gave us that number,
Yep.
and we're not going to do a decomposition of Poisson. And we're going to return
Because
to
we
it
don't know
later.
how.
We don't know how exactly because that
Because
stuff
it's
that pretty,
nonlinear.
yeah, those pictures we made and that you made, they were behind the scenes, they were linear.
Yeah.
They were OLS stuff.
Yeah.
Spiritual
I'm not teaching
level.
Poisson to undergrads.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think I think there, I'm not positive, but there may not be, or I don't know if there is a Frischwald level
Yeah, I don't either.
decomposition equivalent to the Poisson. So we're not going to do it.
Yep.
And here we go. That this number, well, it's not this one, but the number from OLS analog to it is going to be a coefficient, and that coefficient from Frischwald level isn't just a graphical thing. That's not just what's produced out of the Frischwald level is like a graphical intuition of a multivariate regression. It actually is through all those partialing out, you end up with weights. And so you have here two different ways of calculating a multivariate regression. You can either do x prime x inverse x prime y,
Right.
and then you'll get it, or you can go through this Frischwald level decomposition, and you can just do it that way. And
And
that's
let me
going to
just
turn out,
ask,
yeah.
yep. I just want to ask you a clarifying question because I think you might have used weights in the last couple of minutes to mean
Oh,
two
yeah.
different things. And
I
I think
mean
we should
different things.
clarify that for folks.
Okay, sorry. Weight in this case is going to be this
So
W.
Scott is going back to thinking about the terminology he defined. He has this capital W. Go.
Yeah, I have this capital W.
Sorry.
And this capital W in this slide three is basically saying it's more of a tradition, it's population weights. So it's more of a
Yeah.
traditional way of interpreting weights. But when I was talking about Frischwald level, thank you for saying this. When I was talking about Frischwald level is going to always reweight the observations. It'll even reweight the weighted observations. So that's what I was talking about.
Yep.
Okay. We found negative 0.296. If we don't put in, if we just with counting in your fixed effects, When we started adding stuff in, we drove it to zero. All right. So today is going to be this one. We're gonna do this one. It's already like not a straightforward thing to decompose, and it is statistically significant. So it kind of gives us something to kind of interpret a little bit. And the fact that this one here is like a zero, we're just not going to do it. All right, so we're going to do number one.
Yeah. And for my husband who is listening to our podcast in his car while commuting every time,
Yeah.
which is very interesting, and can't see your slides, Scott, when you said this one, we're going to
Oh,
focus on the naive model
yeah.
that doesn't include any controls and produces that 3% decline in marriages estimate. And we're
Exactly.
not going to worry about today those models that add a bunch of controls because it's not
Yeah.
very interesting to try to decompose zero.
No, that's right. Yeah. I got to remember this is radio,
It's
not just
tough.
it's tough. I keep forgetting. Okay, good.
Well, folks who are listening, Scott and Claude have some gorgeous slides.
Yeah, they scored a beautiful deck. So, all right. So this is, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but basically that's the definite. Does that look right to you? That's the definition of distance?
Sure, yeah. Change in distance between
Change in distance.
2014 and 2012 divided by 100. I get we're measuring it in hundreds. So okay, yeah.
Got it. All right. And here we go. Population is going to be the number of women of childbearing age,
Yep.
15 to 44. Is that what it
Right.
always is? 15?
That's what it always is when you're estimating birth rates, because the typical definition of women of childbearing age, historically, it's been 15 to 44. I think some some organizations are upping it to 15 to 49, but in any event, that's the denominator we're using. I don't think it's for marriages necessarily clear that that's the quote
Yeah.
right one, but I think it's probably good enough for our purposes for the time being.
Pins it down on childbearing, which is exotic
Yes.
more than pinning it down on the typical marriage or typical abortion range, right? Which is indirect.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Okay, good. So why does he wait? Tell me if you agree with this. This beta hat coefficient here is population weighted OLS from that regression. And why wait? Each county should count in proportion to the people it represents. Loving County has 100 people, should not count the same as Harris or Houston, which has 4 million.
Right.
Do you agree? Do you agree with that normative statement?
I do. And of course, there's this lovely paper, What Are We Waiting For? By it's Solon et al., I think.
Yeah.
Is that right, Scott?
Mhm.
That kind of talks about the subjective choice of whether to population weight a regression or not. But long story short, I like to population weight linear regressions. I always check the other two, but because I like to think about the effect on the average person, and the average person does not
Yeah,
live in Loving County, Texas.
right.
And also, if if you, it can help reduce the standard errors.
I was also thinking it really comes out of what the policy question is. And
Correct.
isn't
Yeah,
isn't it probably the case that for a project like this, you really are caring about women and not counties?
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. That's what it
agree.
seems like. But it's like
Yeah,
you could imagine caring about counties. Maybe not in this
sure.
case, but it's like maybe, if counties are like I mean, gun log would be probably population weighted, but like,
Yep.
I don't know. Something that counties do to their own communities might make that more relevant. I don't know. Not to get on,
Yeah.
but here where's like the question is like, what's this doing to women
You
population
should
weight?
population weight.
Population weight, because then your target parameter is the average woman.
Hmm.
Well, fish raw level doesn't care because it's still going to do your Venn diagram. So it's
Hmm.
going to be identical. It's just going to change the interpretation.
Hmm.
All right. At the end, we're going to show. All right. So here we go. There's actually two papers. Clement to Chase Martin and DeHolful, they have this AER, and they have in their web appendix, Proposition S1, they provide a level weight formula. That's what we're going to call it, the level weight formula. That's identical to theorem 34C in the CBS paper. All right. So we're going to follow. So that's
Okay.
all. There's like many different decompositions that have been done, and Clement and Xavier, they have this 2020 AER, which is a really famous paper. It was like the
Hmm.
first published diff and diff, staggered diff and diff paper. So you can get, using their package, two-way fixed effects weights. But I had Claude manually do it so that we could sort of see it. So we're not even good. So you don't really have to have a package. I mean, that's the great thing about this is you just have to have some ingredients. And the
Yeah.
ingredients are, did I put the ingredients in? Here. Here's the ingredients. To get the formula for the fish wild level, all you need is six things. You need the average. Now it's going to say population weighted, but let's just ignore that. All you
Sure.
need is, first of all, average change in distance, which is called
Yep.
the dose.
So
Right?
we see in Texas that's about 26 miles. So the average county experiences a 26-mile increase in distance after HB2.
That's right.
Okay.
Is that what you say?
Yep.
Okay. Then you
Yep.
need the variance. Okay. Because inside regressions are always these variance weights. And so you need this variance to calculate this. Then you have to know the density. You have to know the density, which is basically like it's continuous, so it's not very clear, but it's like basically like how many counties are at that dose. It's like kind
Hmm.
of the idea. And then you need something called his population thing version. It keeps turning it into women, but it's like atom. How many of these are not changing? Okay. So
Yep.
that's like the zeros that you were asking
Yeah.
about.
And
And
this
then we,
supports your view that it's urban, right? Because we
yeah,
know it's only 50, I forget the exact number, but it was like 50 some counties out of 254,
yeah.
but it's almost half of Texas women. So that very much supports your
Exactly.
view that it's
Exactly. I
urban.
hadn't thought about that. Yeah, exactly. Oh, so that's great. Yes, that's fitting my conjecture. Yeah.
Yep.
That fit you thought that too though, right? That wasn't like I was coming up with like
Yeah.
a thing
No,
on
I
the
thought it
fly.
made sense.
Yeah, okay. So then you need the smallest dose, positive dose. Oh, by the
Right.
way, um you cannot have negative doses.
And we do not. We don't have, I believe, in 2012 to 2014, which is what we're looking at right here, I don't think there are any negative
That would
doses.
mean openings, right?
That would mean openings. If you go farther out, there's going to be some. So I just want to warn you because there are some that reopen. But I
Yeah.
think, and we might want to double check, I think in this time frame we don't have a negative, but we probably should double check that. I'm thinking about not El Paso. I'm thinking about Laredo. But in
Yeah.
any event,
Any
I
event.
also want to mention the smallest positive dose here is a 3-mile increase. And that has to be the phenomenon I was describing earlier, which is you have a county and like its nearest provider closes, but there's a bunch of other ones really nearby.
Yeah.
And so its distance just goes up a tiny bit.
That might be cities also.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
it probably is.
And then you've got this big number.
Yeah, the largest dose,
Where
300
is
miles.
that? Where is that? What's the largest dose in the Texas map? Do you remember?
I don't, but I'm going to guess it's in the Panhandle or West Texas,
It's
where
a big,
they're like heading to Dallas or New Mexico. But I don't, yeah.
Rhode
It
Island.
could be Laredo.
How long does it
I don't
take to
think so,
drive
though.
across Vermont? What's the largest distance to get across Vermont?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know, but whatever it is, the driving time is way longer than that. So I don't know, maybe
Mm.
100 miles. Vermont's not a big state, but it takes a long time to get everywhere because you're driving over mountain passes.
Oh, so
Remember when I took you over
romantic.
Bethel Mountain Road,
I
Scott, coming
know.
from Boston to Middlebury, and it's like this bumpy mountain road. I got my four-wheel drive going, and you're thinking like, is this really how you get from Boston to Middlebury? And the answer is yes.
It was so romantic. I loved it. I loved all that mountain. I love it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love it.
sorry we didn't see a moose.
Oh, I would have made a stop.
Yeah.
Well, what do they? Are they nice? Are mooses? You
I mean, not really. You don't get out and visit them, but you
don't
can
go up
view
and
them
try
from
to
the
pet them.
safety of your car.
Yeah, okay. Don't pet the moose. Do they have to
Don't
put
pet the
those
moose.
signs
No, they
up?
can be aggressive.
They don't put the signs up. No, but everybody knows not to pet the
Everybody
moose.
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. What fool would try to pet a moose, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay. Adam is bigger than it looks. 22% of counties, nearly half of all Texas women age. So check this out, Caitlin. I asked Claude to make this table, make this beautiful deck. It is, I think we just need to always pause and remember we're living in the future. He is correctly interpreting the atom in our particular context.
Yeah, it's
And
nice.
he is like not making the mistake about forgetting that this has been weighted.
Yep. It's really good. And it's
4 years
exactly what I
ago,
said earlier, right? Smaller fraction of counties relative to the fraction of women. these are urban. And then it tells us the cities. Look at that, Scott. Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, and El Paso are sitting at exactly D equals zero. So they did have closures. Every one of those cities had closures. But for those counties, the one that closed wasn't being used as the nearest clinic.
Yep. I like this metaphor that I came up with, which is that they have five clinics and, they only need one of them to survive to have a dose of zero,
Hmm.
you
Right.
know?
Well, no, that's not quite right though, Scott,
Is it
because if
not?
if four close and one of those fours was being used as the location, we're doing the centroid of the county to the
Yeah.
coordinate of the nearest facility. So
Mm.
if the nearest facility closes, it's going to get redirected to the one that remains open, and the distance will go up a tiny bit,
So there is some
but
flat
just not
out
much.
zero.
Distance just won't go up much, right? It won't be
Yeah,
exactly zero, but it'll be small.
right.
And that's why I was saying I
Effectively, the
wasn't
effective
sure.
distance, still kind of
Yeah.
weird that there's actually D zeros then. I would think like there would be no strict zeros.
Well, it means that for all of these cities, the one they were being directed to at baseline didn't close.
Yes. Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
one that didn't close, like
Right.
even if it was just one, was the one they were going to originally. So nothing
Oh,
changed.
right. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Lubbock, Midland, Hidalgo. Actually don't even know what those are. Midland, I think I know because
I think that's where Midland, the city is. Yeah.
that's like the big football. I think they like do really well in high school football. And then Lubbock.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. All right, we're not gonna do this. So, all right, here we go. So, nice little picture. What he's gonna do here is he's gonna give us the dose distribution. These are, this is way too close to each other, but basically, remember, we're needing to. I wanted to kind of see these. I wanted to kind of see these ingredients. So here we have distance. All right, average distance would be this one across the county.
The average.
Population weighted shifts it over,
Now,
shifts it.
this is the average. You say average distance, but this is the average change in distance,
Sorry,
right?
yes, our treatment variable distance, our
Right.
dose,
Our
our
dose, which
dose
is
is
the
distance.
change in distance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's our treatment. So if you were to do the average dose, that means dividing by 254, then it's this one because the atoms are just, they're not five, they're not half the state population, they're five counties. So it shifts over here. But if you have the population weighted, it shifts it this way because so much of our zero doses are gigantic
Yeah.
counties. So that's
Right.
kind of interesting just to
Yep.
see. And since we need this variance here, it's not on here, but you can see that it's like it's very skewed, but like you could see that, you could calculate the variance. It's not
Yeah.
magic is the thing. It's not magic. There's like if I do this, I can calculate the variance. It's going to be spat out with stata when I just do summarize, comma detail.
Right.
Okay.
I just want to throw out one thing in case anybody in the audience is wondering. We keep saying Texas has 254 counties, and Claude keeps saying 253.
Why is
And I
he
am
doing that?
pretty sure it's because our outcome is log marriages. And there's a county that must have zero and it's undefined and it's dropping it. I bet it's Loving County because that's very rural. But anyway, I think that's why. Scott's asking,
I'm
Claude, did
asking.
you
Yeah.
ask it how to pronounce the color of my
Yes.
eraser?
Yes, you were right.
What? Are you
Stove.
kidding? I was right.
I think so.
Mauve.
Stove, Grove, and Cove. And
But it
so,
says that saying mauve is not, it's
oh,
not
most
wrong.
common.
You're
Yeah.
okay.
Aw, we both get to win.
All right, I like that.
Okay. Let's see. We dropped one. Zero marriages.
Oh, it's
Boom.
Hudspeth. It is zero marriages. I just guessed the wrong county. All right, so it's dropping one that has zero marriages, so it's undefined and we can't use it. All right.
Caitlin
Folks
Myers
in
is the most
Hudspeth, they need to be getting married.
Caitlin is the most inspiring person on the podcast because she knows her data so well. She knows her data. She's like, I know that there's a place with zero marriages. My thought was just that there was a mistake, but you were like, no, there's a zero marriage. Good job. All right, that's great. Inspiring to everybody around the world. I got an email. I should brag about it, but it's like I got an email saying part of what they people love about it is how getting to hear how you think.
Oh, that's
So
kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, that's exactly why I like it too, is to get in the head of Caitlin Myers. All right.
Both should
So
not encourage my obsessive attention to detail. It's not always
is that
good.
always that good? No, I think it's great.
Sometimes my co-authors get frustrated.
No, not this one. So here we go. The level weight derived from Fishwell level under WLS. So we're just kind of ignore the population weighting because it clutters the notation. But here is the thing that you showed, that scaled covariance,
Yep.
population weight.
Yep.
Okay. And there should be like a little squiggle over this, but he's
Yeah.
not doing it. But anyway, conditioning on D.
The dose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
conditioning on the dose. Uh, Here is what, and using a little trick where you add in, you basically add in the zero. So what we're going to get here is this. This is called the level decomposition in their paper, level decomposition. So I don't fully like I learned it a couple of weeks ago, but anyway, put it aside for now. That number from two-way fixed effects is basically an adding up number. It's an adding up number. Now, what we're adding up is where's the delta y? Huh. Let me ask him something real quick. In slide
I don't
the
think there'd be a delta. Oh, I mean, okay.
aren't you the coefficient, wouldn't it have to add up to what's been
I mean, so looking
oh
at
yeah,
the
not the delta y. Yeah.
yeah, looking at the one above,
Oh,
like
it's
what
the
we need
dose.
is
Yes.
the residualized covariance in the
Yeah.
dose
Yeah.
relative to the variance of the residualized dose. And
Exactly.
I'll say, Scott, I'm either, a little confused or I'm just channeling a audience member, take your pick. I understand the first equation because this is for Schwa level and, taught it for years. I can think about my balancing diagram. I don't get the second one.
Yes.
Talk me through this
Okay.
MLM0 thing.
Okay, great. So this is he's doing the classic I leave the proof to the reader kind of thing.
Oh
So
dear.
he's skipping some steps. Could basically once you go through this and you put in the county, and when you partial out county and year, it starts basically like transforming this in multiple dimensions, and this is what's left over. This is what ends up getting left over is an integral. And an integral meaning like all he's doing is he's just adding up counties, multiplying each county by a particular weight, not the population weight, but this. All right, so let's just like ignore this stuff for right now. It's just this. Now, what
Okay.
is this? So that right there is such a common that is such a common thing in all of statistics, the deviation from the mean. It's in R squareds, it's in all kinds of stuff, like variance formulas. They always have like some deviation from the mean inside of it. And so what is it? This is a county's distance, change in distance, minus the average distance. So like if we were
Why
to go,
wouldn't a county's change in distance be D?
yeah, I know this is why he's freaking doing it. Like drives me crazy. Let me just ask why on slide are you using L as the dose, but not D as the dose when D is the dose? He's got some reason. So, but you're exactly right. That is the county dose. That is the
Oh.
county's
So,
particular distance.
so it's the difference between the county's dose and the average dose.
Correct. It is
And
this.
what's that P subscript on EP
It's the
denoting?
population weighting.
I
It
see. Okay, got
it's
it.
the population
Got it.
weighting. So like this right here, this L, okay?
Yep.
So we'll just do this one because this is like 0.261. So
Okay.
this guy right here, what number do you want him to be?
Oh, he's like a 0.12
Okay.
increase.
0.12 minus 0.261, negative
Yep.
0.141.
Negative, right. Okay. So the counties that have a below average increase in distance, that number's negative. And the counties that
Everything
have an
else,
above average increase in distance, that number's positive.
yeah, because look at
Yep.
there's three ingredients to the weight. All right. That one is a positive number. And that's a variance, and variance is always positive if it changes because it's got the
Yeah.
squaring term, which means that is right there in the numerator, either going to be negative, zero, or positive.
Right. So what we're looking at here is going to be weighted negatively if the county is below the average dose and positively if it's above the average dose. But
Not,
I'd
and not
still
only
love for
that, we
Claude
know,
to tell me why that's L and not D,
yeah, okay,
because
so
I'm worried I don't understand something.
here's what he says. Standard probability statistics convention. It's a real distinction, not redundancy. D is the random variable or the data column, the dose for county I, DI. It refers to the thing being measured. L is a specific value that D can take on. Oh yeah, look, it's that. It's like it's the I still agree
Okay.
with you. I am having a little trouble. So this is all like I guess he's probably just those guys, Callaway and Bacon and Pedro, they are they are like the notation police, and and
Yeah.
I'm definitely much more looser, and they kind of keep with conventions. So I
Got
think
it.
it probably is something like that. But I think
All right.
the reason you were confused and the reason was the same reason I was confused, which is I thought it was the dose, so shouldn't it be a D? It
Yeah.
is the dose.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And maybe, if Bacon or anybody else is out there listening, like we've got this question, but I think I get it. I think I get the notation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Notation is it can be a big pain. So look, we know all of those are getting negative weights.
Yep.
And we know all of them are getting negative weights, but it's not just that, Caitlin. Let's look over here.
All of them are getting positive weights on the right-hand side of
All
the
these
mean.
guys are getting positive weights, but
Yeah.
who's getting the biggest
Right.
of
So the
the
more
of this part of the
distance,
weight?
yeah. So the bigger the difference between distance and the mean, the larger in magnitude the weight. And in particular, because we have this long right tail, it's the counties that have the really big increases in distance that have the highest weights.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. It's a little bit more complicated but only by a little bit. But look,
Okay.
okay, first is everybody gets the same denominator
Yep.
because that's a constant.
Right.
This is
And the
unique,
denominator is just the variance in the dose,
just the variance in the dose,
the
just the
partialed
spread.
out variance in the dose.
Uh
And it doesn't have a hat.
yes, it is because it's the residualized. Because if we go back to your graphic,
Yeah.
it was covariance Y
Yeah. Yeah.
D squiggle divided by variance D squiggle. So it's been partialed out. It's been partialed out.
So
That like
is Claude wrong not to have a hat on the
I feel like he
variance?
needs to have a hat on it. Why aren't you doing the traditional FWL squiggle on the D in variance and the numerator, since it should be partialing out, or is that the hat? Uh, well, actually, or wait, or is it not? Is it actually the level? You know what? That's a really good question because up here, I believe is the residualization, and down
Right.
here is the actual formula. No,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. No,
Well,
I
I'm
think
still trying to understand all the terms in the second one, so I definitely don't have my head wrapped around it yet.
no, I think you're absolutely right because this is the average, not the
Yep.
average of the residual. It's
Yes.
the average of
Yeah.
the dis,
I
and then the
see. Yeah.
variance will be the
So
same
the
too.
variance is not the residualized variance
Correct,
in the
correct.
denominator. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So that is the residual, but the residual collapses into this simpler form or in this other form.
And what's
So
this FPDL thing?
it's the density. It's
Okay.
the number
Got
for
it.
those that are listening. It's basically a version of how many people are at that dose or how many counties are at that dose.
Hmm.
So, in its population weighted, when it's population weighted, um, it could be gigantic because of the population, or it could be teeny tiny,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's using the level.
It is uses the level. Yeah. Got it. Okay. I
Okay.
I understand now. I'm getting there, Scott.
You're doing, yeah, we're both
On
getting
behalf
there.
of the audience, I'm getting there. I will say this is going to be one that will be hard to listen to without the slides, but for folks like me who have been putting off trying to really deeply engage this, the
Yeah.
slides are very helpful.
So let me ask you this. Let's say there is a county right there.
Right
There is
on the mean.
right on the mean.
Exactly.
How there he's got a denominator
Yeah.
and there
But the
is
numerator is
somebody
zero.
that is so what happens to him in the Frischwell level?
Doesn't contribute here.
That's what actually when I answered your question earlier when you were asking about the zeros,
Uh-huh.
that's what I actually heard the wrong thing. The if your dose is the average dose, you vanish.
Yeah.
You'll never
Yeah.
effectively vanish in our example because this is like a continuous dose, so nobody will ever have an exact number, but you will be vanishingly small.
Okay.
So it's still
Okay.
this weird. That's kind of that old Bacon decomposition, which is that the regression has, oh, weights up people at certain points more than others. Only it's now in the opposite direction. If you are far from the dose, ironically, you get big weights. And if you are from the average dose, and if you are
Yeah.
like if you're the typical county or the typical
Hmm.
woman, you go away.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So okay, so those are the big things. Those are the big things. Um, and then you integrate. You integrate over it. Okay? You
Yeah.
integrate over it so you get a weighted average. So we can hand calculate it. We can plug in these Texas numbers. So let's pick a dose of 1 and we have this 2.61. That's the density. It's not
Yeah.
10%, but it's like the amount of probability at that point,
Yeah.
0.102 for that particular group of counties. There's like a density of 0.102. That's the variance.
Uh-huh.
That's the weight on that particular county. So at a 100-mile dose, all right, look where it is. It's that guy.
Yep.
He's getting, or that county is getting 0.20, meaning that
Okay.
whole thing is 0.20.
Okay.
All right. And now contrast it to a no change county,
Yep.
L of 0.
Yep.
Now, that's called the atom weight. Now, what it's doing in the atom weight is it's getting this like negative expectation dose times the probability of D equals 0 divided. So the it's weird thing is this is the part of it that is strange. We said that the 0 dose gets deleted in the regression because there's no within variation. But to get that number through Frischwell level, it gets like to get to that intuition is to weight it down by negative 0.33.
Okay.
So
Okay.
here's this
Yep.
picture. So this picture is a distribution of the weights, not the distribution of dose.
Right. But the distribution of
Because
the weights based on
exactly,
these three factors.
of which there are 254 weights, because there are
Yeah.
three, because there are 253 counties. And so we get a distribution. And look, there's the range of negatives,
Mm-hmm.
there's the range of positives.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the population weighted level weight curve and KDE. So what is KDE? What is KDE? And we had another question.
Kernel density. Well, okay, we'll find
Oh,
out.
yeah, I bet you're right. Kernel density.
We'll let
I
it
bet.
tell us.
Okay. We sort of had the idea that if there was no variation in dose, that two-way fixed effects would delete it under
I
that
would say
delineation.
delete it, but it doesn't identify the coefficient is identified by the counties that are changing, no?
That's why I
Let me
said
think.
deleted because,
Well, no, but it's relative to ones that aren't.
mm,
I
I
take
was
it
just kind of
back.
thought of it as like you're demeaning the data when you put those when you put those fixed effects in. And I guess I just kind of thought,
I I think we mischaracterize this because suppose, Scott, for instance, that every county either had zero dose or
mhm,
had a 100-mile dose. we would still be able to identify an effect, right? By comparing the ones that increase
Yeah,
to the ones that don't.
totally, totally.
So I don't
Yes,
think I was describing that very accurately. We need a change, right? We need to have some that do change to identify an effect,
we need to
obviously.
have some that do.
Right, but it's relative in part to ones that don't change. It's also in this case relative to ones that change less
Hmm. Hmm.
or change by a different amount.
What do you think about this picture?
I think it's really interesting. And in particular, I don't have great intuition. So, kind of looking at the weights, the curve is wavy, right? This is like, so what we see is that the weights are highest for the counties that are experiencing around 150-mile increase in distance.
Mhm.
And then they're lower if it's a 200-mile increase. And then they're higher again than that if it's a 300-mile increase. I don't have good intuition
I
for
think
that
it must be coming from that.
from the density.
Yeah, from the
Yeah, and if
density.
like we go back to the density of counties of dose changes, it's coming from, go back to the histogram maybe. Lost at that. I'm trying to understand, does this shape tell me something about the weight curve?
Okay, let's see. The denominator is the same every time. This would just assume monotone. If it was just distance, it would be monotonic, right? So then it's like looks like it's going something like this. They're moving in, yeah. So it's like shoop, shoop.
Well, I'm looking at like the difference between like 1.5 and 3, so 150 and a 300-mile increase. And we've got, on the one hand, like if you're going out to 300 miles, we've got fewer of them,
Yes.
but their distance is much wider, right? So that be really far from the mean if you're 300 miles away increases your weight, but
Yeah.
having less density there, does that decrease your weight?
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand the
Exactly.
curve of the weight function.
Right. Going left to right makes that number bigger. But if there aren't many there, that makes that go
Okay,
down. So this is not like unambiguous.
right.
That and so look, like see how it's kind of doing this thing. So
Yeah,
like dose 1.5. All right, dose 1.5 is that. Let's see if that one has the biggest hump. It's like right in there.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
been like blown up because of that scale, but I bet if we were like just to look over here, it would be like, is that like the biggest? That one looks like that one might be the biggest, but that might be the second biggest.
yeah,
Wow. Well, no, yeah. See, get closer to the average, you start shrinking the weight, you get further away,
right,
start doing it. So yeah,
right.
that's why that must be
Yep,
why it's doing that.
yep. Okay, I think I'm I'm continuing to understand. That's really helpful.
Okay, so here we go. I asked him to calculate by hand the regression coefficient. Let's see. Right. Negative -0.006. Negative 0.006.
Those look like the coefficients from the models for the controls.
Yeah, it does. Hold on. Let me just ask him. Here, you talk for a second.
So when we were looking at the coefficients, it said that it was negative point like 0.006, and I was recalling that I thought the coefficient was about negative 0.034. And so I'm wondering if it used the model with controls to perform the exercise, because I thought we were going to go with the model without controls. So Scott is asking,
Hmm.
what is going on? I'm humbled by how many times I think I've caught Claude in an error, and then Claude tells me why I'm wrong. So
Yeah.
Claude will explain to me now why I don't understand that slide.
It's funny though, because even when he's wrong, he's not trying to trick me. He's
Yeah, he's
he's
very
like
kind.
he's very kind and you know, I was reading that there was this like thing I saw the other day, the three laws of robotics.
Okay, so I don't know what I'm looking at. It's not the covariate adjusted Poisson result, but what is it?
Oh, it's two ethics
Today's.
specs. Oh, it's the population weighted OLS result.
Oh, I thought that was. Did we not see the population weighted OLS result earlier? I
No.
thought we had verified, Scott, that it was similar to Poisson.
No,
Did we
I
not?
think he never did it.
Oh, goodness gracious, we should have done that. Okay, so
Uh,
I thought for some reason that, well, I mean, it could have been similar. So That is the weighted OLS result because we switched from Poisson. Okay.
Exactly.
And the
So,
weighted OLS result is smaller than the Poisson result.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So, and let's see. So he says, no, it's not covariate Poisson. It is two period. Oh, yeah. Look,
And it's also the
Poisson.
two-period collapse.
Got it.
Okay. So we did two things. We not only switched to weighted OLS because we needed a linear model, but we also, for the sake of kind of tractability on this whole exercise, collapsed this to just two periods. We're just looking at 2012 to 2014.
Yeah.
So we have really changed models for the sake of the
Yeah.
decomposition.
That would have been
Okay.
nice. Okay. And it does include state your fixed effects. So, or
Okay.
counting your fixed effects. So he
Good.
runs that regression. Look what he gets. Negative
Amazing.
0.06339. If he had instead, or it had instead done this,
Yeah.
okay,
So if
this,
instead did Frischwall level with
right.
our whole weighting thing.
Exactly. He takes weight, it takes a weighted average over 253 counties, right?
Hmm.
Going from this to this, where
Hmm.
those are the weights, you add them together, and what do you get?
The same thing.
Same thing. That
Yeah.
is what Frischwall level says, is that there's two ways to
Woohoo!
look at the same thing.
Yeah. I
And
love
they're
Frischwall
different.
level.
They're different by what he calls
Computational
machine
error.
precision. Yeah, it's like how
Yeah.
stuff ends up being like stored in
Yeah.
floats or something. So anyway, it's the same thing.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
So we verified that that Frischwall level equation, that CBS formula that they've given us for it works. Like we've actually just applied it and we verified like this works.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we do with that, Scott? Now that we know it
Uh,
works, what's interesting about it?
mm, well, now, yeah, what's interesting about it? Well, we know what each of the counties is doing.
Hmm.
We know what each county is doing. We can reassemble our result county by county. We get basically, ask Claude. Let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. Now that we have decomposed the two-way fixed effects coefficient into these weights, what are we going to do with this? Why do we care beyond being just curious about how regression works? As he's answering, I wanted to kind of ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
This thing I read online said that one of the laws of language models is we should not anthropomorphize them.
Yes.
Why do you agree with that?
Well, first off, I agree and then don't follow it if you haven't noticed.
Like it's so
Um,
hard to do.
I
Pronoun.
think it's I think it's dangerous for our little fragile human minds to take this technology that is powerful but dangerous and then treat it like our friend and, call it he and call it Claude. Um, and at the same time, that's exactly you do it. I've started doing it increasingly. Um, and it's interesting, I'm not somebody who like names my cars, but I think when I'm becoming very intimate with this technology, I want it to be human-like.
So, do you think that that should extend to pets? Should we or like
Well,
toys or imaginary friends and stuff?
pets are, no, I don't think it should extend to pets, although I also am not somebody who refers to myself as like a dog mom or something, because anybody who's had small children, I think should roll their eyes at people who think pets are equivalent to children. But pets love us. You can't tell me otherwise. My
So
dog loves
what's
me.
it rooted in? That's what I'm trying to get at. What is the prohibition rooted in? It's not that they're not human. It's what? That they're not alive?
It is that they're not our friend. They are dangerous to us. If I had a lion in my backyard that wanted to eat me, I might name it, but my interactions with it would be from far away behind a fence, and I would not be talking about it like I talk about Claude. I would be talking about it like the dangerous lion, right? I'm worried it's not just I guess it's not just anthropomorphizing Claude, but it's making it our friend. It's the way we talk about it that I think
Mhm.
risks us forgetting that this is a dangerous technology in my view. I mean, I'm kind of a more than kind of a pessimist about it. What do you think? You think am I
Well, I think
overthinking it?
no, I don't think you're overthinking. I think everybody gets to have their opinion for sure. And I think I'm in an awkward position as a Gen X uh, person who grew up. I still remember seeing Star Wars in the theater. I was born in 1975, but I think it got released and then got released again. So I still remember being in the theater. I definitely remember seeing Empire Strikes Back. I remember seeing Terminator 2. I collected comics as a kid. Where am I going? In all of these stories, humans are friends with the robots. It's always been in my stories. My stories have always been that we are friends with the robots. Of
You
course,
see
in The
2001
Matrix,
Space Odyssey?
yes, and then there are is a different genre in the genre of stories of human robots. It's the full spectrum, and so you've got the Matrix, where they are mostly not friends with the machines, although there's a few that they are kind of with, like the woman who can tell the
Mm-hmm.
future. But then but then
The
there is
Oracle.
yeah, the Oracle, but then there's like C3PO, and then
Mhm.
there's like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. So I guess I kind of get like this is where I get a little defensive because I'm like, hey, some of us have squatter rights over our opinions over this because like we've been dreaming of this day since we could like walk. And like I kind of feel like why don't you just say be wise? Why does there have to be these rules about how we go about it? Because but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know like obviously people are like marrying their chatbots out there. There's like they're having sex with their chatbots. When we get
Yeah.
robots, there's no telling what is going to actually, I mean, it's very predictable what will happen when we get actual robots. But so I understand like all this stuff, but it's kind of like you want to go, well, science fiction writers have been priming us for this for 50, for 100 years. So it's kind of like, and these people that come along and have like these prohibitions on it, I just always want to go like, tell me your favorite Star Wars episode, start right now. Put them in order. And if they don't put episode Empire Strikes Back, episode 5, 4, if they don't list those, then I automatically know that they are that well, I have an opinion about how I'm going to weight their opinion.
Oh,
Not you, of course, not you, but I just like have this defensiveness. Okay. What do you think when
so
I say that?
Scott,
You think I'm being
I'm just
unwise?
gonna flag for you that this is gonna be our longest
Are we like,
episode of
have
all
we been on
time.
forever? We probably need to stop. So,
And I have a thesis student who's about to knock on my door in like
all
5
right.
minutes. We got to figure out where to, leave people with a cliffhanger with this. What do you?
How about it's why do I care? Maybe that's the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger is they just did math on the phone.
Yeah.
So why did I just sit through that nightmare? And we'll have to come back the next time and just be like,
Yeah.
all right, why do we care? And then you offline will figure it out. And will be doing the next talk from Europe because I'm about to go on an 8-week tour of Europe.
Fantastic. We're gonna have to deal with some time
Fantastic.
zone differences, but that'll be just fine.
That'll be just fine. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect. And I'll always kind of like walk you around wherever I'm staying.
I love that. Where are you going first?
Zurich. So next
Nice.
stop is Zurich in a week. Or actually tomorrow. Tomorrow I go to Zurich.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hope you have uh few travel hassles, manage to get some sleep on the plane, and I'm excited to pick this back up next time. I'm sorry to leave folks hanging, but it turns out maybe you can't walk through the entire
Yeah.
decomposition in one brilliant episode, but
It's kind of cool.
more soon.
All right.
I'm
Good to
learning.
see you. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
good to see you too.
Bye bye.